Ah, shit.
You are beaten. It is useless to resist. Don't let yourself be destroyed as Obi-Wan did.
God damn, man.
There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you.
Fucked up my hand, man.
Cycle Cruiser.
You do not yet realize your importance. You have only begun to discover
Force
power. Join me, and I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy.
I'll never join you!
If you only knew the power of
Ducati. Obi-Wan never told you about his new motorcycle purchase.
He told me enough!
He told me CBR 1000 double R.
No.
It was for the new Ducati V4.
No. No. It's not true. That's impossible!
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
No! No!
You can always get a good deal on a $12.99 final edition. Even with those K wheels.
Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
I'm having a pretty fucked up day.
Show you where we're going. This is my view. Gotta get your body all the way around in this. Wow, holy fucking shit. Photo equipment, and then, ooh, look at that lizard. Oh. I might just throw a random fry in the middle. Oh, who's faster? That was good. 35? Here we are in beautiful Malibu. It's New Year's Eve, and I'm going to take a little night ride up to the Snake. You can see the Malibu mountain range here on the Pacific Coast Highway. This is a neat little baseball park. Oh yeah. So that's where we're going. And it's been about 2 years since I started this whole thing. And I figured I would revisit where I had started, which was the Snake. We got a like a 7/8 full moon, so we'll have some decent night vision. Although it has been very foggy today. Got nothing else really going on right now, so I figured I'd take a ride up there, see if anyone's up there. Dum-dum. I'm gonna go a little different way this time. Rather than the Topanga Highway, I'm going to go this other road here called Winter Mesa Drive. And, but that's okay. Alright. Yeah, super foggy. My helmet is really fogged up. And I don't have my pin lock screen on, so it's gonna be a pain in the buttocks. So in looking back in 2017, it's been a pretty interesting year for motorcycling. And actually, one of the highlights was Ducati's world premiere last month, where they unveiled the new Ducati V4, which was pretty cool. I don't think it sort of evokes the same emotion as the original Panigale, but it's a pretty cool bike. But the presentation itself kind of aroused some suspicions.
That's detective music.
This is the first year that Ducati didn't do a comparison of previous generation motors, you know, touting the latest and greatest virtues of their, you know, newest engine. You know, they did that from the 1199 to the 1299, and actually in all the previous generations. But I was very surprised that they didn't compare the 1299 L2 to the Stradale V4. One of the things I thought was weird was Claudio Domenicali makes a proclamation that the new V4 puts out 214 horsepower, but only a couple of months ago Ducati put out a whole press package for the Stradale and they claim 210 horsepower. And if you look at the plot that's right behind Claudio in the world premiere, you can see that that plot peaks at about 210 horsepower. And what's even stranger is that if you go to the Ducati website, you're going to see two different power numbers. You know, 214 horsepower on the front page, but if you do some digging around, you'll see that there's a 210 horsepower number in there. And you can say it was some last minute scrambling on Ducati's part to, no pun intended, to put together that presentation, because the V4 Stradale isn't due to be out until, you know, the spring, late spring. So right now the current bike is in low rate initial production. But I really think what happened was Ducati got wind of Aprilia and BMW's Superbike horsepower numbers for 2018. And those top tier bikes are going to put out about 215 horsepower. The last days preceding the presentation of the world premiere, they basically just bumped the power to 214. They can always substantiate it later. Oh man, hit a pole? I don't know. Yikes. Well, she's alright. Guess I'm not the only one up here. The snake. Dun dun dun. Gonna fog up like a motherfucker. Can't see a damn thing. So anyway, my suspicions were sufficiently aroused that I did what Ducati didn't do, which was to transpose the V4 data that they posted there behind our buddy Claudio against Ducati's own data from the 2015 Ducati world premiere for the 1299 Panigale. And it's probably been a couple weeks since I looked at the data, so I'm going from memory. But basically what I did is I extracted the data from those plots, put it into Excel, and generated my own plots, and you can see them. I'll post them here. And what comparing the two curves does is confirm what fears I think a lot of the Ducatisti had, at least, of Ducati ending its long run of V-twin superbikes with a V4. And, you know, who wants a four-cylinder Ducati? Why would you buy a four-cylinder Ducati? You know, Desmo Sedici aside, you buy a Ducati because it's a twin. When you look at the 1299 Super Quadro, you get that characteristic low-end grunt, that low-end torque up to about 5,000 RPM, and then the torque dips a little bit in the mid-range. You get a saddle there up to about 7,500 RPM, and then you get this just savage, violent upsurge in power from about 7,500 to around 10,500 or 11,000 RPM. An insane amount of power. I think that's why the bike is, you know, so difficult to ride on the track, because you've got such a short window from which to extract all that power. And then when you compare it against the Stradale motor, you can actually see why Ducati was reticent in making this comparison, because basically the V4 Stradale looks like an inline four-cylinder in terms of how it puts down power. So you get a very linear output, and when you look at the torque curves, it's even more pronounced. It has less torque overall. I think the 1299 is around 100, 106 foot-pounds of torque compared to Stradale, which I think is around 90. Just looking at the twins' torque curve compared to the V4, you can see that it's such a better street motor. And for smaller tracks, I actually think it's going to be quicker than the V4 Panigale, just because the V4 Panigale is a little heavier. You know, the V4 may be easier to ride, even though it still has that semi-monocoque frame or subframe construction where the engine's a stress member. But because the 1299 has a dry weight of about 20 pounds less than the V4 with greater torque, the 1299 will be more nimble and quicker through tight corners, especially coming out of the corner. But I think on smaller tracks, the 1299 will best the Stradale V4 Panigale. And for larger tracks, you know, especially down the straight where the twin signs off, the V4 Stradale is just going to continue pulling. And to illustrate just how linear and predictable and how non-characteristically Ducati this motor is going to be, I compared it against Aprilia's dyno numbers for their, I think it's the 2017 Aprilia RSV4 RR. And those curves basically just lie over one another. You know, it looks like the Stradale motor pulls a little bit harder all the way up to the red line of about 14,500 RPM. Where the Aprilia looks like it signs off at around, you know, 13,500 or 14,000 if my memory serves me correctly. But it could have just been truncated, you know, by Aprilia when they released the plot. You know, and then to make things a little bit more interesting, I transposed the BMW S1000RR horsepower, you know, crank horsepower dyno numbers from BMW. I think it's for the 2015 S1000RR. So again, not an up-to-date curve, but you know, not a whole lot of changes were done to that bike in the last couple of years. I believe I compared the S1000RR against the V4 Stradale and the 1299 L-Twin. And you can see just how similar the V4, Ducati's V4 Stradale and the S1000RR put down power. Extremely linear. And if you know anything about the S1000RR, as much of a powerhouse as it is, it really isn't a very interesting and fun bike to ride. It doesn't have a lot of character unless you're really going at insane speeds. Now, who knows? The V4 may have a lot of character, much like the Desmo Sedici, but I'm highly skeptical. I really think that for those who were, you know, really eager to run down to their Ducati dealer and trade in their 1299s for a new V4 Panigale, I mean, I think you're going to be disappointed. I mean, for people who always need something new, they need the latest and greatest, it may satiate your ego just enough that you're happy, but I think you're going to lose a lot of what made Ducati a Ducati, which is that L-Twin power plant. With all the warts that the 1299 Super Quadro had, it really was an incredible motor. You know, of all the twins that they've made, that really is a benchmark for any twin motorcycle. And it's such an interesting motor that's full of character, and I really don't think that the V4 Stradale will ever capture that. You know, as good as it may be on the track or whatever. And I understand from an engineering standpoint, you know, if you're going to put a lot of time and money into development, you might as well, you know, have a parallel between what you develop on the track and your factory production motorcycles. But in terms of a street bike, and let's face it, most of these bikes are going to spend their life on the street. Oh, I can see again. I just think that the L-Twin is going to be a much better street bike. This is where everyone crashes here. So in the end, I think it was a natural progression for Ducati. It's something they had to do. The L-Twin had really just reached its limit in terms of performance. Just the mass reversal and the thermal efficiencies alone, the limitations of that. You know, whenever you de-stroke a really large displacement motor, you have a much shorter time to get the gas pressures to develop inside the cylinders. And this is especially true when you have really large cylinders. You don't get power until you really get the motor breathing, get a really high flow rate. So that's basically where they were with the Super Quadro. So I understand it was a natural progression to go to smaller cylinders and more of them. It's more efficient. Friggin' take this tinted visor off. I can't see shit. It's all fogged up.